So the last part we will be talking about is the budgeting and pricing as part of financial management. So it's easy if you're a big club and you have a whole machinery working behind you as a cash generating company. However, what if you're a small club and you have to figure it out all by yourself? How do you finance your day-to-day operation? And I have to break it to you, it's not just about finding the right people you'll be working with and dealing with them on a day-to-day basis. You really need money to succeed. And how do you get that money? A good strategy will allow you to achieve your goal, but there are two major challenges today that you have to start thinking about overcoming. The first one is financing. And the second one is fan engagement. One is directly related to the other because without fan engagement, you cannot really generate any money. Vice versa, without any financing, you cannot draw the interest of any potential new and would-be fans of your club. So there are some traditional ways of funding a club, and most of you are very familiar with them. The first and foremost being members' contributions. You can also start charging for your activities or selling merchandise, which is a great cash-generating machine. You can also try for some charity fundraising or finding donors, sponsors, or even trying to sell some broadcasting rights if you're interesting enough for a local TV to pick you up. You can also start with investing in sports asset, meaning buying some players that you can develop and sell on later on. Or you can even start thinking applying for local, national, or EU funding, which has become a major source of financing in recent years. Erasmus Plus is just one way of doing that. But please keep in mind that you have to be commercially viable without any support from the local government, or at least with some minimal support. And you should never strive to become financially dependent on these sources of funding. You have to be able to stand on your own and use all of the other funding as an added value to developing your sports. That, to put it mildly, is what sustainability is all about. You have to be self-sustainable without the help of the government. Apart from the traditional ways of financing your sport organization or club, there are some new and innovative ways of doing so. You have to just look around yourself and see what everyone else is doing or what you're surrounded with. And at this moment, what you're surrounded with is technology. So you have to start using technology and connecting. The first and most innovative way nowadays is crowdfunding, or so-called fan funding, when you engage your fans so much that you make them care about your sport or your players, even if they're miles and miles away. The second way of funding your activities would be by creating digital content, and by doing so, you also improve your fan engagement levels. The third way of doing that is state-of-the-art, and it has not percolated down to the most basic levels of sports, and that is blockchain. By doing so, you can actually have a much deeper levels of fan engagement, and probably one of the most popular ways of doing so is by going on the Sportico platform and looking for the option of becoming part of a decentralized funding ecosystem. Before you do that, though, please try yourselves out first in the traditional models before moving on to the innovative models. But social media and digital technologies are the future of sports, and you should jump on the bandwagon as soon as possible. One of the most important issues that you will be facing with as part of the management structure of a sport club or sport organization is budgeting. Why? Because budgeting is the crucial component of the financial management process. No matter how wealthy your club is, your resources will always be limited because your wishes will always be bigger than your current means. So the big question is, the funds that you have, how will they be allocated? Will they go to venue management? Will they go to buying new players? Will they go to new coaching staff? Will they go to physio stuff? Will they go to equipment upgrade? And so on and so forth. If there's one thing to remember, that is that budgets are finite and you can never cover as much as you want from them. So if there's one thing you have to learn in finance, that is how to prioritize and decide what needs to be financed first. So what is a budget? A budget is nothing more than a financial plan that shows you the parameters within which you can move and allocate funds. It will actually give you a great way of controlling your spending patterns, and it will ensure that your expenses are contained. In doing so, they can provide you with a much clearer picture of where you are and where you want to go. Because without having the proper financial backing, you cannot do a lot more than just daydream. A financial budget is a way of making your financial plans come true in the most efficient way possible. There are many benefits to budgeting, and I urge you to start doing some budgeting activities as early as possible if you haven't started doing so already. However, it's important to keep in mind that there's two types of budgets that we'll be mainly dealing with. The first one is an operational budget for which you will have some practice examples as part of this course, whereas the second one are capital expenditure budgets. What is of interest to us are the operational budgets because they are recurrent and they refer to day-to-day operations of a club, for instance. However, you also have to know how to budget for capital expenditures such as big investments or spending on fixed assets if you want to buy a new sports hall or if you want to buy some big property where your new field will be and so on. So, what exactly are operational budgets? Those are your financial plans, and they're actually statements of anticipated levels of revenues and expenses over a period of time. And please keep in mind, these figures are nothing but estimates, and they will be different from the actual numbers that will occur. However, even this, the differences that will occur, will be better than not having a plan at all. So the plan on your part is to predict as accurately as possible all the figures as part of the operational budget. But even if they're not all that accurate, you shouldn't worry, because that's the difference between plans and real life. What you need to worry about is that revenues should be higher than expenses in order for you to be able to cover yourself. There is also one very specific budgeting subcategory, which is budgeting for mega events. And the principles are pretty much the same as planning for an operational budget, except that we're talking about the large size or scale of the event. A good example is planning for a mega event such as the Olympics or the World Cup, where you need a long-term planning facility, which will include a lot of stakeholders and will have a whole financial machinery behind it, most of the time backed by the government. So, how do we determine what price we need to charge for the tickets? Or how many people or attendees we can accept during our sports event? For this, we have to learn how to do break-even analysis. And that is actually an analysis of the cost, profit, and volume parameters within financial equations. That is, we need to understand how costs, profits, and revenues change in relation to changes in sales, membership, and attendance. This is a very useful tool because it will help us with our financial decision making, and it will improve our event management and special service delivery. So, the questions that it will answer is what attendance level is needed to ensure a viable event and what ticket price we should charge. Once we figure that out, we can build a whole budget around break-even analysis. The specific steps of how break-even analysis is performed are explained in detail in your course materials.